Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. 3 refuges. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. And the 5 precepts. Pāṇātipātā vēramani sikkhapaddaṃ samadhiyāmi, Adinādāna vēramani sikkhapaddaṃ samadhiyāmi, Kāmesu micchācārā vēramani sikkhapaddaṃ samadhiyāmi, Musāvādā vēramani sikkhapaddaṃ samadhiyāmi, Suramēraya majjapamādāṭthāna vēramani sikkhapaddaṃ samadhiyāmi. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, good evening to everyone. So tonight we are continuing this chapter or this topic on unworldly, this Niramisa Sutta, and hopefully we'll be able to finish it tonight, so that next month we'll start a new chapter, a new topic. So just for your info, for those who are here, next week there's no class. So this is the last Tuesday lesson for this month. Okay, so we are talking about these 3 states of mind actually in this whole sutta. So the first state of mind talks about the mundane, the sensual state. Then the second state of mind talks about the unworldly state, mainly the jhanas, or states of absorption, states of concentration. And the third state of mind describes the enlightened mind. So this, they call it the greater unworldly kind of emotions. So we have the brief from the first slide. We talked about it last week, so we have covered the first 2 already, joy and happiness. So today we talk about equanimity and freedom. Okay, all right. So we talk about equanimity. The worldly kind of equanimity is usually the feelings part. So you have the pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, and neutral feeling. And it's neither pleasant nor unpleasant kind of feelings. So we call it neutral. So this equanimity cannot be associated with the jhana equanimity or the wisdom equanimity. So sometimes you see one word, upeka, or you sometimes see the word happiness, sukha, or you see the word joy, piti. In different contexts means different things. So like in this case, this equanimity here is the worldly kind of equanimity. So there's no kind of spiritual development involved. It's more like a normal reflex action. If you do not find anything pleasant or unpleasant, then the natural feeling that appears neutral. Like you have a subject that you have neither particular interest nor dislike, and you hear about it and you find neutral or nothing unique about it. Right? So there's nothing special. There's no kind of spiritual effort required to develop this equanimity. Okay, then the next one. Okay, so this second equanimity talks about the jhana. So it's mentioned in the jhana factors, the third and the fourth jhana has equanimity. Just that the third level of concentration has a mixture of happiness. And only in the fourth level, then you have the more, purer form of equanimity, not mixed or not stained with happiness. Okay, so I'll just read through. Now, what is unworldly equanimity? With the abandoning of pleasure and pain, and with the previous disappearance of gladness and sadness, a monk enters upon and abides in the fourth meditative absorption, which is the fourth jhana, which has neither pain nor pleasure, and has purity of mindfulness due to equanimity. This is called unworldly equanimity. Right, so it requires a kind of developed mind to enter this or experience this kind of equanimity. So an untrained person or a person who is not into meditation will not experience this equanimity. So the definition of equanimity is to be unshaken by the 8 worldly winds. So that's the definition of equanimity. So what are the 8 worldly winds? Basically, that's the vicissitudes of life. So the first pair, you have gain and loss. You gain something, you lose something. It can be material things, can be status, whatever, gain and loss. And the second pair, you have fame and defame. Your popularity, fame and defame. And the third pair, you have praise and blame. People criticize you or they praise you, then you have different ups and downs. And the fourth one is this pleasure and pain. Pleasure and pain. So total, these are the 8 winds. So our mind is so-called untrained mind will be shaken, will be dragged around, will be pulled around by these 8 winds. Will be flying around with the 8 winds. So the first type of equanimity, which is the worldly kind of equanimity, very fickle. Once you experience something unpleasant only, then that equanimity gone. Once you experience something pleasant, that equanimity also gone. Whereas this one, unworldly equanimity, it's a bit like a battery. So for jhanas, you need to recharge it. So like any battery, this energy will last for some time, not forever. So if a person do not maintain the upkeep of their meditation object or their reflection, then this equanimity will lose power, will disappear, will fade away. So this equanimity is very transient. Also, not as transient as the mundane equanimity, but still impermanent. So that's why in our routine, we always mention about keep on planting the causes, keep on rowing the boat, or keep on turning the Dhamma wheel. You need to keep on generating right thought every moment, even when the mind is in these concentrative states. Because once you stop only, then the mind will fall away. It's like a metaphor for being reborn in the Brahma world. If let's say in that so-called heavenly state, if you do not continue to create good karma, then you'll fall from that heaven once your lifespan is up, once you use up that karma. So similarly, in the micro sense of things, if we are experiencing concentration, if you want to sort of maintain it longer, then you need to keep on inputting this right thought all the time. So usually common so-called mistakes for meditators is that once they experience something peaceful, then they are so shocked, they want to enjoy and they want to stay with that peace. Once they stay with that peace and they forget about generating right thought and right effort, then very fast they use up that karma, they use up that peace or that whatever state that they are experiencing, then you go back to square one, down to whichever sensual realm they were in before that. So this is a temporary state also. But the function of this equanimity in the jhanas is to purify the mindfulness or strengthen the mindfulness. So you need certain boost in this mindfulness so that you can use it to do your investigation. So we talk about like recharging the battery, right? So once you recharge the battery, then you can operate your apps. You can do some functions, as you can investigate the 5 aggregates and so on. So that's the function of these states of absorption, meditative absorption. The purpose is to recharge the mind. So if a person is just bent on doing jhanas only, it's like they just recharge and recharge but never use the app. And never send any message, never do any work. You just recharge and recharge. So then it defeats the purpose. So the purpose of recharging your device or your phone or whatever, so that you can send your message, so that you can do something. So the thing we are doing is actually investigation. The investigation of the 5 aggregates. Alright, so next slide. Okay, and what is the still greater unworldly equanimity? When a taint-free monk, so taint-free means liberated, no more defilement, looks upon his mind that is freed of greed, freed of hatred, and freed of delusion, then there arises equanimity. This is called a still greater unworldly equanimity. So, the third state mentioned here talks about again a liberated person. So if a person is enlightened, they'll experience a new type of samadhi, new type of peace, which is not the same as the jhanas. So it's not the jhana. So they will have this new type of equanimity which is permanent. So nibbana is permanent, unconditioned, unchanging, unborn. So we call this nibbana or nirvana if you use Sanskrit. So that's the highest state of mind. So in this state, it's beyond our samsara. So if a person is still alive, let's say a person is enlightened and still alive, and they are in a shell of the 5 aggregates, but they experience this greater unworldly mind. That means their mind is already beyond this time and space, but the 5 aggregates mind is still working in samsara. So in a way they have you can call it like 2 mind. So anyway, this is the greater unworldly equanimity. So this is the safe point or the safest point because you cannot make it disappear. Whereas the jhanic equanimity can disappear. So if a person, let's say they attend, let's say a meditation class and experience equanimity, after the class or after the retreat, then they forget to, or rather they don't put in the same kind of effort to meditate, then they say, the peace is gone, back to square one. Then we call this the first 2 kinds of equanimity, either the mundane equanimity or the unworldly equanimity, which is the jhanic equanimity. So that states of equanimity are impermanent. Whereas this final equanimity, this greater unworldly equanimity, is the our end goal, basically for Buddhists. If we are aiming for enlightenment, then this is actually the end goal. Okay, next. Okay, then the last slide here talks about freedom. So the same thing. Now, O monks, what is worldly freedom? The freedom connected with the material. So in some so-called free societies, when they talk about freedom, you can do what you want, but it's connected with the sense pleasure. You can purchase what you want, you can enjoy whatever show you want, you can eat whatever you want. So that is the material kind of freedom, sensual freedom. Okay, then what is unworldly freedom? The freedom connected with the immaterial. So this one is talking about the jhanic concentration. So if a person enter these so-called states of absorption, then they are free from the mundane or the sense doors or the sense pleasures, sensual pleasure. So that's the freedom connected with it. So that's another kind of inner happiness beyond sensual pleasure. Okay, then last one. And what is greater unworldly freedom? And the same thing, when a taint-free monk looks upon his mind that is free of greed, free of hatred, free of delusion, then there arises freedom. Alright, so this is the third kind of freedom. So total 3 for each emotion. So more or less describing the same thing. So if we were to talk about like the 7 factors of awakening, 7 factors of enlightenment, that's actually closer to the third one. It's the path to the third state of mind, the greater unworldly kind of equanimity, greater unworldly joy. So that is actually the 7 factors of awakening, nothing to do with the jhanas. Alright, so that's the end of my sharing. Actually very fast today, just to clear up these things. So we probably have more time for any questions, Q&A, chit chat, any feedback or anything that is confusing. Anyone? Okay, there's a chat here. Okay, no problem, Bian. Do you have anything to ask or comment?
No, not from me.
Okay. So the sutta is pretty straightforward. I just talk about 3 states of mind. So it basically is extension from the previous topic on the Piyajatika that talks about holding your close ones, your dear ones. So we are trying to differentiate the sublime states actually. When a person talks about loving kindness or compassion or appreciative joy or equanimity, people will tend to mix up with the mundane kind of equanimity or mundane kind of joy. And they spend too much time on the mundane kind of emotion, then they will say, oh yeah, my meditation, like no improvement like that leh. Or I spend many hours doing this kind of meditation, but then when crisis hit, then cannot find peace, because that's assessing the wrong state of mind, wrong emotion. So basically we are here to identify there's these unworldly states and also the greater unworldly states. So we're actually aiming for the second 2, ideally the last one, but the stepping stone, if we have the jhanic concentrations, at least it will give you some mental resilience, mental stability. Okay, then we have a question in the chat. So the question is, am I to understand that one attains nirvana Only then can one be totally free of greed, hatred, and delusion. Yes, that's the idea. Right, so the definition of the third noble truth, cessation from craving lah. So a person totally sees the greed and anger, then it's either a non-returner or a arahant. Okay, any other questions? Okay, nothing. Okay lah, then we have a short break, 5-minute break, then we come back for a longer sitting. Hi, Brutus. You joined just in time for the meditation.
Bhante, can I ask you a question first?
Okay, sure.
Just now you said the first and the second stage is still very worldly. So if we experience unpleasant feeling or things unpleasant happen, we will not be able to bring forward the sublime states to overcome the pain and the suffering. So we will just have to endure it, no other way.
So like in the simile of the arrow, so when a person experience, for example, unpleasant feeling, that one you cannot control. The unpleasant feeling cannot control. So it's like the laws of nature. It's like the sun rising and setting. You cannot change that. But the only thing that we can do is to prevent getting hit by the second arrow. To prevent getting tortured by the second arrow. So of course the ultimate way is through detachment. If a person is doesn't cling to this painful feeling, and it will create more mental distress. So this one again not easy, require lots of training, lots of mindfulness, of impermanence and right effort, and eventually one can detach.
You will be able to detach only when you reach the Arahanta stage.
Yeah, somewhere close to there, yes.
Otherwise, there is no way to explain. People may dispute with you. You are doing the wrong thing, therefore you are suffering. But we are not doing the wrong thing. Only the thing we haven't reached that level of achievement yet. But those people don't know. They accuse you of doing the wrong thing. Then how do we pass it? How do we get across it?
Each their own way. If they think it's wrong, then you, if they're so happy, then congratulate them. Ask them how they become so happy.
Bhante, I have a question.
Okay, all right, Faith.
When you say detach, right? How do you detach? I just example, like for example, if grief, you're very pain in grief. How do you detach from it? And when you say detach, is it like don't think about it? Isn't that the kind of suppressing the feeling?
Okay, so yeah, very good question. So the whole idea of the Buddhist this doctrine or this syllabus is to overcome grief and despair, or overcome suffering. So the long answer is all of the Noble Eightfold Path. So it's easy to say let go or detach. It's like a one-word kind of answer, but it requires 8 things. The Noble Eightfold Path. So that's the very general answer. So in our meditation routine, we are trying to apply the right thought, the right effort, and all those things. Yeah.
Even if you apply the 8 things, your level of achievement then still not reach that stage. You will still experience a lot of pain and suffering and grief.
Yeah, definitely, because the Eightfold Path is not an easy path. Yeah. So probably if we still have a lot of anguish and suffering, then we're still like beginning on the journey, So the further you reach to the end, if let's say a person really like reach across to the further shore, then no suffering lah. But if they go further, then the suffering should reduce. When the mind gets purer, then it becomes like a buffer, Or another way to put it, instead of using arrows, we have the salt lake simile, the metaphor for salt and water. So imagine our goodness, all our right reflection and our good thoughts are like plain water. Then all the unwholesome thoughts, the greed and anger, is like salt. So if let's say a person, let's say beginning only or non-practitioner, they probably have like one small teacup of plain water. That means very little goodness. And if a person just generate a bit of unwholesome thought, then it's like putting 1 teaspoon in that small teacup. Then you stir, then you drink. Of course, it will be like very salty. But if a person is, they cultivate the Eightfold Path and generate lots of good thought and lots of wholesomeness, they're expanding that pool of water, plain water, to like a, they say like a Ganges river. You know, it's like a big ocean, a big river full of water. And if a person just have a bit of unpleasantness, experience, you know, some unpleasantness, it's like putting a small teaspoon of salt in that big ocean of plain water, and you stir and you taste of, then the salt will be like negligible. You can't taste the salt. So it's something like that lah. Okay, hopefully.
So there is no worldly cure for the worldly feeling until you achieve something lah. Because if you still not able to make any progress yet, you will still feel the full force of the pain and the grief. The full force of the pain and the grief. And then that person may get disillusioned. Why am I doing so much? Also still cannot overcome it. He will feel, in the end, he may feel like giving up, discouraged, overly discouraged.
Yes. So that's what I mentioned earlier. So a lot of times people spend like many years or many hours like meditating or attending classes and retreats, but if they are practicing the mundane states instead of the other two, then probably you have no results, are very easily shaken. So when crises happen, then you say can free from suffering, but no, I still experience a lot of suffering, and immediately they will kind of lose faith. So it's good to troubleshoot. Every day is actually a test. Any kind of obstacle, you have to check for yourself how much detachment you have, or how much peace you have.
But that's why I feel a bit confused. Because in meditation, we learn about observing the sensation in our body. So feelings is like, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like a kind of sensation in our body.
Yep.
So by acknowledging it to be there, isn't it going to be better, and just observe? Because time will let it pass, right? The emotions, it will pass, right? It will arise and it will pass. So when it comes to detachment, you mentioned that you have to detach. So wouldn't that be a kind of like a confused state whereby are you really detaching, or are you just suppressing the feelings?
Yeah, so what you mentioned is partially what we are doing. We're actually intentionally generating the right reflection. So we have to deliberately label rising and passing, or wishing the sensations well and happy. So if you're wishing the sensation well and happy, that's more going towards the second state of mind, which is the unworldly state. And if we are thinking of impermanence, then we are heading for the third state, which is the beyond unworldly, or the greater unworldly state of mind. So if a person doesn't actively reflect on impermanence, they just observe, there's a high tendency to cling to any of that stimuli. So if a person, like you mentioned, if they experience grief, then they can observe the sensation, but then the grief is like very strong, and then they will just hold on to the grief. So it will kind of like linger there for a very, very long time. So unless you do the equal and opposite reaction, equal and opposite force, which is to intentionally think of something wholesome to overcome it, then if not, this grief will be there for a long time.
Okay. Bhante,
Yes.
some opinions say time heals all wounds. So some people say no need to practice anything. As time passes, your mind will forget more and more of the grief and the pain. So like that, no need to practice lah. Just over time, you will forget the pain and the grief. Is that true, Bhante?
Yeah, everything is subject to impermanent. But then again, if we do not practice to reduce this clinging, then the grasping or clinging to those unhappy states will be longer. So whenever any crisis happen, any grief happen, then the untrained person will hold on to it longer. So just treat it like mental kind of self-defense, mental kind of protecting your mind, mental resilience. So a person, of course, like any kind of skill, they can choose to say, yeah, don't need to learn what, learn for what? Yeah, like this crisis happen. Of course, it will eventually fade away. But then again, it's about how fast you recover, how it affects your daily life. So if a person is moody and depressed all the time, it will affect your relationship, relation with the people around you, your work performance and everything. Okay, any other?
What about those who try to overcome their grief and pain and suffering, not through practicing, but resorting to things like consulting a medium, go and see a fortune teller, or see the feng shui, or do something. They think that by doing this, they will improve their luck and their good fortune. What do you think of this?
Yeah, so there are many mundane or many ways, many methods. So the Buddha mentioned there are so many knowledges in the world, just like the leaves of the forest. So the Buddha only picked up a handful of leaves. So compared to the leaves in the entire forest, the teaching he teaches is just very little, one handful, which is the Four Noble Truths. So the person, if depending on how much right view you have, if a person wants to overcome the root cause of this anguish, then it's about having right view, overcome craving. But of course, if there are many mundane ways to overcome external problem. If let's say you have sickness, you see a doctor, there's an external way, nothing wrong. In fact, you should, a person sick, should go and see a physician. But if a person want to talk about overcoming the emotional anguish, then we use this Four Noble Truths. So there's both mundane methods, which is the external methods, and the internal or the supramundane kind of method. So it's up to you to juggle which one to go to. But then again, if a person over rely on, like for example you mentioned going to medium and stuff like that for everything, then it becomes like over reliant. So if one day that thing doesn't work, or they have no opportunity to go to that fortune teller or medium, then their happiness is basically totally dependent on that medium or that fortune teller. So you need to find how to take some self-responsibility of your own happiness. Okay, any other questions? Okay, if not, then we start the meditation proper. So we're going to mute the mic to prevent feedback. Alright, so we are going to find a comfortable sitting posture. Make sure your back is upright and the rest of the body relaxed. Okay, and what we are doing is we are going to first do this impurities of the body meditation. So we're going to do some visualization. So we start off with the hairs of the head and hairs of the body. So from head to toe, we visualize the hairs. So visualizing the hairs itself, there's no Dhamma value, very worldly. Any hairstylist can do it also. So whatever image that project in your mind that you visualize, if the hair looks very beautiful, then you have pleasant feeling. Then the untrained mind will want to have greed, react with greed. I like this hairstyle, I want to have this hairstyle. But if the image that you conjure out becomes unpleasant or very ugly, then the person will tend to react with aversion. I don't want this hairstyle, so ugly, I don't want. So the mind likes to go to extremes, greed or anger, and then if let's say the image you find a neutral, nothing, I don't particularly like it or dislike it, and that's a neutral feeling, still a worldly neutral feeling. So that's not the equanimity we are after. Okay, so what we are doing now is we are going to first wish the hairs well and happy. And once you finish the sentence, wishing the hair is well and happy, quickly move to a new patch of hair and wish it well and happy. Because the laws of impermanence is that the mental fabrication will keep on changing. So if you do not switch and keep on generating the right thought, the mind will start to create a lot of drama show, and you chase all the stray thoughts. So new patch of hair, well and happy, new patch of hair, well and happy. So the repetition is right effort. So in this current state, whatever emotion is the strongest, can be grief, can be tiredness or whatever. If a person do not keep on repeating, the mind will cling to this, the next strongest emotion, which is the grief or the tiredness, whatever. And then you see how far can the mind calm down. So the more you apply right thought, which is part of the Noble Eightfold Path or the Fourth Noble Truth, it should lead to the Third Noble Truth. That's some reduction in the craving and stress. But if you stop thinking of right thoughts only, then the mind will go to the first two Noble Truths. You chase after other sense pleasure and have clinging and all those stuff. If the mind is quite settled down, then we take note of it as your neutral baseline state. So no absorption yet, no jhanas, no nothing. So it's a neutral baseline state, and this would be the minimum requirement for insight, going to the path of detachment or going towards the final goal. So we are now going to think of impermanence. So all these hairs go through birth, aging, sickness and death. So we think of them growing and falling, many cycles. So mentally we use this mantra, either use rising and passing or birth and death, and make sure you synchronize the image with that mantra. So basically fast forwarding the birth and death process lah. So if there's real detachment taking place, some of the symptoms appearing should be this joy. And regardless of what you experience, continue to think of rising and passing. Don't stay in the joy, just know that it exists, but continue your middle path. Continue the journey, rising and passing. Eventually the joy will disappear, so the neutral and clear kind of feeling, neutral and clear kind of emotion, we call that equanimity, the wisdom kind of equanimity. So regardless of what you experience, continue to label rising and passing. So in the Buddha's time, there's this venerable Sivali who gained enlightenment just by thinking of impermanence of the hairs. I mean, just think of impermanence of the hair or rising and passing. See how far can you detach. Okay, so this is just a taste of the vipassana only kind of joy and equanimity. So now we switch to another routine, which is feeling of the 4 element sensation. So now no need to visualize anything. So we're going to feel the 4 elements, which is the earth, fire, wind, and water elements. So earth represents any hard and soft sensations. Fire represents any hot and cold sensations. Wind element represents any kind of movement, fast, slow movements. And water element represents any moist or dry sensations. So the idea is we let these sensations appear naturally by themselves. Don't have to purposely control or conjure them. Let them appear naturally, and we make peace with them. I do not struggle, no fighting, do not resist them. So in order to do that, we wish them well and happy. Any sensation appear, wish them well and happy. New sensation pop up pop up again, wish them well and happy. Okay, so if the mind is quite settled down, again, similarly, we'll come back down to the neutral baseline state. No absorption yet. So this neutral state is just for your reference. So in this neutral state is the worldly kind of equanimity. Okay, and now we are going to cultivate this boundless loving kindness, non-restricted. So we're going to wish, may all beings in all directions well and happy, above, below, and all across all directions. May all beings be well and happy. No need to push or exert. Let the mind extend naturally by itself. However far it wishes to extend doesn't matter. And no need to visualize, no need to imagine how all sentient beings look like. So we're going to perceive all beings as the 4 elements. That's like the lowest common denominator for everybody. So they call this the non-discrimination approach. So any sensation you can detect appear, we are going to wish, may all beings be well and happy. So in that widened area of attention, you can feel it inside the body, can be outside the body, doesn't matter. Any stimuli that appear, that you can detect it, then we are going to wish, may all beings be well and happy. So that's your new mantra, and we accompany it with the sensations. A new sensation appear, may all beings be well and happy. New sensation appear, may all beings be well and happy. Okay, and if a person continue to wish, may all beings be well and happy, if you fulfill the right thought, right effort, everything, this loving kindness may trigger this right concentration. It will lead one to the first level of this absorption. Indicated by this pleasant emotion of joy and happiness, not as intense as the impermanence one, but more dull, but at least more stable. It will last as long as you keep on wishing all beings well and happy. Okay, so again, these states are temporary. Once you stop recharging, you'll be discharging. Keep on wishing, may all beings be well and happy. Okay, then we add the insight portion to this loving kindness, how to cultivate a more detached kind of loving kindness, a more unconditional loving kindness. So we're going to think of impermanence. So whatever sensation appear, this time around we label rising and passing. A new sensation appear, rising, passing. Okay, so we're still traveling to the path of this greater unworldly state of mind. So continue to label rising and passing. When you stop only, it will backtrack. Okay, then we move on to the second sublime state, which is compassion. So the conventional compassion is to imagine and worry for people, so that's the mundane kind of compassion. So you want to have the unworldly kind of compassion. We are going to don't visualize, no imagination. So we're going to stick with the elements. Any sensation appear, we're going to wish, may all beings be free from suffering. A new sensation appear, may all beings be free from suffering. New sensation appear, may all beings be free from suffering. If the conditions are right, the compassion may lead one to the second level of absorption, which is denoted by this emotion of joy and happiness. So this joy and happiness slightly stronger or distinct than the one in loving kindness, if it's the second level. And regardless of what you experience, continue to keep on wishing, may all beings be free from suffering. Treat everything else as a distraction. So this is the unworldly kind of compassion. So the mundane compassion is just sad, sorrowful kind of emotion. So this unworldly compassion a bit more pleasant. Okay, so now how to go towards the greater unworldly kind of compassion. So we're going to now think of these impermanence. we're going to reflect how to free ourselves from suffering, practice the true compassion. We have to uncling ourselves from the aggregates. So every time new sensation appear, we just label rising and passing, use impermanence to shake off this clinging. Okay, so the same thing, everything like impermanence, if the joy of detachment start to disappear, then one may experience a different kind of tranquility. And continue to turn the Dhamma wheel, keep on labeling rising and passing. Once you stop only, you lose battery, then mind will cling to something else. Okay, then we move on to the third sublime state, which is appreciative joy. So we are going to rejoice in the accomplishments of all beings, and we are using the non-discrimination approach. Every time any sensation appear, all beings will actually gain a new experience. So it's a moment to moment, sensation appear, experience gain, sensation appear, experience gain. So all beings, it's more or less moment to moment, a new experience. So we can rejoice in that, experience gain. So anytime new sensation appear, then we can label rejoice with all beings. Okay, if the conditions are right, this appreciative joy may lead one to the third absorption, which is indicated by the emotion of happiness. No more joy, maybe a bit of equanimity. So that's the unworldly, this happiness. And regardless of what you experience, keep on rejoicing with all beings. Okay, then we add some insight. We are going to reflect that all beings will eventually be separated from what they have achieved, including all these sensations. They don't stay with us 24/7. They come and go every moment. So any sensation appear, we just label rising, passing. Regardless of what you experience, keep on labeling rising and passing. So it's basically small drops of water to your clear pond. Every moment you generate thoughts of impermanence. Okay, and we are now moving on to the fourth sublime state, which is equanimity. And this reflection, we are using karma. Yeah? All beings are subject to karma. We reap what we sow. So for this routine, no need to imagine. Don't need to think of, in the past, what have I done before? So no speculation. So every moment any sensation appears, that's actually old karmas ripening. Every moment to moment when these sensations appear, there needs to be a past cause, but we do not need to know the story behind the past cause. So we just need to make peace with it, just label it as karmas ripening. So if a pleasant sensation appears, that's usually good karmas ripening. If an unpleasant sensation appears, then that's bad karmas ripening. In short, we just label it as karmas ripening. Okay, and if the mind is more accepting or at peace with whatever that being thrown to you, then the mind settles down and one may experience this neutral but more refreshed, more clear state of mind. So that's the equanimity of the fourth absorption. And this equanimity is different from the insight equanimity, a bit more tense in a way. Because in a way there's some kind of deliberate imposition of certain ideals. So there's some kind of a bit of density or tension. And regardless of what you experience, just label karmas ripening. Okay, then eventually we are going to add some insight, some wisdom, and we're going to reflect how to overcome these karmas. Every time good karma ripen, they feel happy. Bad karma ripen, they feel sad. So these are the mood swing problem. Yeah, so all the emotions and worldly state, when it flicker and get affected. So this time round, we think of impermanence. Any sensation appear, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, we just label rising, passing. Okay, before we conclude the session, same gentle reminder: in all activities, whether we're standing, sitting, walking or lying down, we can be mindful of impermanence or mindful of the sublime states, and with that we can gently open our eyes, formally end the session, informally generate right thought. Okay, any questions or problems from anyone? Okay, if there's no issues, then we move on to the chanting. Okay, so the dedication of merits. Akasata Japumata Devanaga Mahidika Punyang Tang Anumoditva Chirang Rakantu Loka Sasadang Etavata Cha Amhehi Sampadang Punya Sampadang Sabe Deva Sabe Puta Sabe Sata Anumodantu Sabba Sampati Siddhya. Dedication of merits to departed. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Aspiration. Imina punya kamena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu Yavani Bana Patiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, and we end off with bowing to the Buddha 3 times. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Okay, so same gentle reminder again. Next week there's no lesson and we are restarting the class on when again?
On the 8th of July.
Okay, 8th of July. So the next lesson will be on 8th July. So see you all then. Good night.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.